Hey, welcome back to the Megan Daubert podcast. I am Megan. Thank you for joining me back here on the podcast. I am still so grateful for all of you who are subscribing on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and for giving me those quick 5-star ratings. Thank you. It truly does help me so much. So I appreciate any time or effort you put into doing that. Thank you. And I see you. So grateful. So we're back here today. This point in the story of Michael and our family's journey through the brain injury process. We are now about 2 months out from this happening. So we are at the end of March at the Shepherd Center in Atlanta, and Michael's memory is still awful. Like, he has made lots of physical improvements, but his memory is still really poor. It's kind of there at times anybody who would swing by and visit, you're curious about someone with a brain injury, curious about what it's like to have no short-term memory or long-term memory. So we would kind of like play these games, or when we would FaceTime his brothers or his friends, we would play like, see how much information we can shock Michael with. For example, Michael was a huge Washington sports fan. So we all know the Washington Redskins are what we grew up with, and Michael was a diehard Redskins fan. So if you remember, the Redskins changed their name to the Washington Commanders. Now, Michael is also having long-term memory issues. So when his brothers would tell him, Michael, the Washington Redskins changed their name. They're no longer the Redskins. They're now the Commanders. The shock and the horror and the look on Michael's face every time that happened was wild. It was, we would chuckle about it because, it's sports, not the most serious thing in the world. But he would be shocked every single time. He was shocked when we asked him who the president of the United States was. I should have written down, but I cannot remember who he thought it was, but he didn't know that whoever was the president at the time in 2024 was the president. And I forget who he thought it was, but those funny conversations of keeping up with the times, of course, he did not remember those things. None of that stuck. So we would shock him with these, like, they're no longer the Redskins, or so-and-so's the president, or can you believe this? That was, entertaining in a lighthearted way. But yeah, it was new information to Michael every time. On a more emotional note, I would take the time to kind of talk through what each of our siblings were doing and where they were and how they were, and talk about the nieces and nephews that we had. And now my youngest sister, Brianna, had gotten married the year before his accident, and Michael didn't remember it. Now, Michael has been in my family since I was 15, right when we started dating. My youngest sister is 16 years younger than me. So Michael has been in her life the entire time. He has known Brianna for as long as he's known me. And he is truly like an older brother to her, a blood brother. And she is a baby sister to him. He adores her. He adores all of our siblings. But, when you have 16 years on somebody, like it's special. So when I was showing him pictures of Brianna's wedding and then her new baby, he would start to cry because he thought he missed it. He would say, Brianna's married? And then he would get tears in his eyes. And then when we would show her little baby, he would cry even harder because he would say, I missed it. And I'd say, no, Michael, you didn't miss it. Now look, here's the picture of you with our family at the wedding. You were there. And he would get emotional that he didn't remember it. And things like that were really hard to just watch and absorb, because you're like, oh, these special memories, these special places in our heart, like, he doesn't hold them anymore. And he was noticing the sadness in not having that memory anymore. So, there were the funny things, there were the sad things. And at this point in March, one of my brother and his wife, they were expecting their first child, and they had their baby boy in March, and we missed it. We weren't there for the birth of him. And of course, Michael did not remember that Anna was even pregnant. He did not know that this was this fun, exciting thing. So, every day we would get new picture updates of sweet baby Parker, who, my siblings and I were really close. I would never have missed the birth of a nephew. And like we live locally together. So it would be possible for me to go to the hospital and visit them. It would be possible for me to bring them meals and take care of them. But in this scenario, it wasn't. So like there was always just these little griefs of what we were missing and what we had lost and what opportunities were no longer opportunities because of our scenario. So just this is kind of like the heaviness that we were always sitting in. Well, lightness and heaviness at the same time. So fortunately, we had a nice stretch of visitors. So our friends, the Feldmans, who we knew from Virginia Beach, had recently moved to Tennessee, and this particular part of Tennessee was like 2 hours away from Atlanta. So they drove down on a Saturday and just spent time with us, which was really lovely to get to spend time with friends to help pass our time. Still, that is a consistent theme here. Michael, at this point, he doesn't remember the Feldmans very well, but they were, fresh meat. They were great to converse with him and ask the questions and just talk and help pass time. So that was a beautiful gift. And then Easter Sunday was on its way, and that meant that our daughter Carmen, our oldest child, Carmen, was coming to visit us in Atlanta. Our dear friends, the Owens, road tripped down with their 3 kids and our daughter Carmen. My brother-in-law drove Carmen to North Carolina to meet the Owens, and the Owens brought them the rest of the way down to Georgia. And we had several days together. So we were looking forward to this. I was looking forward to this immensely because, of course, I missed Carmen. And now Carmen had seen her father in the hospital back in February, unlike the boys. So Carmen had laid eyes on Daddy before, but this was, just as significant to show her how much he'd improved. I knew that she was going to enjoy seeing him more this time than she did the last time. So they get here, and Michael is in this newer phase where he's perseverating, is what it's called, where he is fixated and kind of stuck on an idea. And these ideas were either like a new nugget of information, which I'll demonstrate in a second, or like he would perseverate on I haven't seen any doctors, I haven't seen any nurses, I've seen nobody, why am I here? And he would get stuck on that idea all day long, and we would talk about it over and over and over again. So, however, once Carmen and the Owens got here, we got to meet upstairs in the family room again and just have conversation. Now, he did remember the Owens. They have been in our lives for years and years. We all are graduates of the University of Virginia together, but we didn't actually meet and become friends until our life in Virginia Beach. So they are from Virginia Beach, but had in the last 2 years had moved to do a fellowship at UNC Chapel Hill for his job. So that's why they were in North Carolina. So that transfer of information, Michael did not remember. So we got to talk about where Jeremy and Christina are living. And we had just found out that they were moving back to Virginia Beach, which was a huge win. Christina and Jeremy, you're never leaving me. I love you guys. You're the best. Thank you for moving back here. But at that time, the news was fresh that they were coming back to Virginia Beach. So it was exciting. And of course, Michael and I are huge fans of where we live. So he was so thrilled. That was still in Michael. He was so thrilled that they were coming back to Virginia Beach. But this was our conversation. He would ask them, okay, so you're moving back to Virginia Beach. He would repeat that information, and they'd be like, yes, we're coming back. And he'd say, do you need to buy a home in Virginia Beach? Which was so funny because he's a real estate agent, right? He would sell homes, and he had actually helped them sell their home 2 years back. So he was like, okay, so you need to buy a home in Virginia Beach. And they said, well, yes, we're going to probably rent first. And then he would say, okay, so what are you doing again? And, we would map out, okay, well, Jeremy's a doctor, so he's coming back. They're going to they're going to move back to Virginia Beach. And Michael would say, do you need to buy a home in Virginia Beach? And it was kind of this like 3 or 4 questions that we would cycle through. I'm kidding you not, about every minute we would have this question. And I was just like, I was used to it. I mean, loosely used to it. But watching Jeremy and Christina, and then Carmen and their daughter Caroline, kind of watch Michael and listen to him be stuck on an idea with such short-term memory loss was interesting, because you could kind of see everyone was so gracious and gentle and kind and wonderful with him. But like, if you really think about what it's like to be in a conversation with somebody who has a minute-long attention span, it's weird. And the conversation was just weird. And it got to the point where I brought a legal pad, like a paper with me and a marker. And I was like, okay, Michael, we've been going in circles. Let's write down, like sentence by sentence, the things about Jeremy and Christina that are exciting. So the conversation would start over, and Jeremy or Christina would politely say, yes, we've been living in Chapel Hill. So we'd pause and Michael would write that. And then Jeremy would say, so we are going, we're now moving back to Virginia Beach. I'm going to be able to join a practice there. And so we'd pause and Michael would write, the Owens, and we'd have to like spell check that, are moving to Virginia Beach. And then he would read that and he'd be like, oh my goodness, do you need to buy a house? And they, we'd chuckle every time and they'd say, yes, we do need to buy a house. And he'd be like, great. So he'd say they need to buy a house. We'd helped him write that sentence. And we got about like 4 points in and we were kind of at capacity. So here I'm dying to catch up with my friends. And Jeremy is a doctor. He understands all the medical side of things. He's been very, understanding in this whole process. I want to talk to him. He has questions for me about Michael, but Michael is just stuck in this. He would interrupt a conversation that we were having to say, are you moving to Virginia Beach? And then we'd pause. Yes, we are moving to Virginia Beach. And then he'd say, do you need to buy a house? It was hilarious. It was quite remarkable. It was wonderful. We had a great time together. And I'm so grateful they're there. And they stayed in town at a hotel, and Carmen stayed with me. Carmen got to attend some of our therapy sessions the next few days, which was really lovely to have her involved. She's actually really, really gifted. I was very impressed at the way she would interact with Michael and interact with the people around her. She just was very engaged and treated him appropriately, like kind of met him where she should at his level. It's very beautiful. I also took some time just to have mother-daughter time with her out in Atlanta, and with the Owens as well. We did the aquarium again. We went to, of course, a shopping mall, and preteens, they want to shop at Lululemon, and we went down to the Battery again and enjoyed a nice meal together. Just did fun things because it was also her spring break. We wanted it to seem like it was a special time to get away and be in a new city and do new things. So there I was again in between the caregiver and mom roles and learning how to balance it and being neither fully present when I was with Michael and definitely not fully present when I was away from Michael. And it just was another like dose of reality of, hey, this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard at home with the kids having needs and needing you, and with Michael having needs and needing you. It just was a whole new world. But overall, the time was really sweet, except for the fact that as Michael continually got more fixated on things, it also took a negative direction where he was really fixated on why he was here. And he was getting frustrated. He would say things like, I haven't seen any doctors. I haven't seen a single nurse. I haven't been to a single therapy session. What are you talking about? Why are we here? He would say, I'm all done with my medical thing from last week, which I don't really know what he thought. Now, obviously, he had been relearning through therapy that, hey, this is what happened to you. You're a patient in a hospital. But he thought he was done. He said to us, I don't need to be here. I'm all better now, over and over again. And he was getting a little combative about it. And at one point with me and Carmen there, he was getting angry and he started using curse words. And now that is very unlike him. That definitely did not happen in front of our kids. So Carmen is kind of watching with wide eyes at her, like her daddy, like this, who is this man? Why is he behaving this way? And what just came out of his mouth? It was alarming, I will say. Like I have always felt very safe with Michael, but his agitation and his frustration, which are a very natural part of his healing journey with the brain injury and his, slightly growing awareness of, hey, I am not at home, and hey, my memory is only a couple seconds long. So why am I sitting in this hospital room? I can't remember doing therapy. So why am I here? I'm ready to go home. You can understand why you would get frustrated. And again, Michael is highly intelligent. He wanted to know why he was there and what he was being treated for. But the moment he started to get angry and very agitated and a little combative in front of my daughter, I had to make the choice to leave. Like, we ended our time together early and I took Carmen out of the room. And it was a very weird, like, mom switch that I had to do to, like, normally I would want to be there with Michael and help calm him down, help get him into a more stable thought process. But Carmen was here. And now again, the mama bear protective instinct comes out, and I want to protect her because I know what is happening to me emotionally and mentally. That's surely there is some type of effect on her watching and witnessing all this as well. So I took her out, and I can't quite remember exactly where we went that day, but we had to talk about it together. And like, you could just tell that this was kind of a turning point for Carmen, being like, wow, this is a different person than I left. This is a different person. What's happening with daddy? It's a lot to process for an adult. It's a lot to process for any loved one. So imagine your 12-year-old daughter beginning that journey of processing what has happened to her father. But yeah, I mean, that is the space we were sitting in. That is the pain that I was beginning to hold and be aware of. It was overall a really sweet time with Carmen, but also really hard. She left a note on his whiteboard. We have a little whiteboard in his room, and she had the sweetest thing in her sweet little handwriting. She wrote, "Dad, I can't wait for you to return home. I love you to the moon and back. Love, Carmen." And she left that there as she said her goodbyes. And that whiteboard, like, it was such a sweet representation of what was going to happen. That message would sit there for a little bit, and then it would get erased when we needed to use that whiteboard for an activity. And he would have no memory of her being there. And I would have that memory. Saying goodbye to her was really difficult, just like it was saying goodbye to the boys, because it was just this very physical reminder of we're separated. Things have changed. Daddy's in a hospital. Not all is well. Like, this is tough. So she loves her daddy dearly. She is a daddy's girl. So just to see, I can't wait for you to return home. I love you to the moon and back was just this precious little, like, moment in time that I wish I could freeze. And I will elaborate more on things in episodes to come about how all of this is affecting all of us. But it was sweet and sad, and just something that I really wish my children never had to experience, but they have. And I wrote down in my journal that evening as Carmen was leaving, and I'm just going to read straight from it because it kind of gives you a good picture of where I was at this time. Now, this is the end of March. Easter Sunday was like the 31st that day or that year. And Michael had been given a discharge date of April 18th. So it was coming, but we were in the thick of it. So let's see. I wrote down, Michael was very difficult today. He even got angry and frustrated in front of Carmen. So I had to leave early. I don't know how to finish these final 3 weeks, which is really tough because that seemed like that was a concrete date. The first time I'd been given a concrete date for anything. So it should seem like an easy countdown, but I was just tired and exhausted and grieving, and everything was too heavy. So like the thought of finishing these 3 weeks seemed like so much of a burden to bear. I said, we need a breakthrough. I feel so, so, so bad for him. My heart breaks over and over, and it's not even for me. When I think about all that we've been through, I don't even have room left to break for myself, meaning like I'm just broken for him at this point. I was not even attending to my heart and my needs. I was just in survival mode, getting through, taking care of Michael, learning as much as I could. I was not in a place to process what I was going through, watching my husband go through this. But after the 3 kids had come through, I wrote down, I'm so scared of a lifetime of him with no memory. Will our kids ever respect him again? Will he be the same dad he was? 12, 10, 8 years with him was not enough. He is such an incredible dad. I cannot fathom not getting him back. So at this point in time, these fears are beginning to formulate in my mind as I am watching our day-to-day of him just having terrible memory and not being himself. And then now having introduced the kids into this and realizing, oh, this is not good. What a loss. What a loss. Because he was an incredible father. And like I said, that 12, 10, 8 years with him is not enough. I want more. I want more for these kids. So this fear of again, the unknown, fear of the future was so much to bear. So that's kind of where I am at the point in, 2 months into this injury, still 3 weeks left in therapy, living there full time. It was a hard place, and I could only make it through by the grace of God. Like, truly, my prayers were short and sweet. They were like, Lord, sustain me. Lord, you got to help me. And truly, I can tell you, he is the only sustaining hope that I had. And it was hard, but clearly we made it through those next 3 weeks, which I will get to next. But everything was heavy. It was heavy and was hard. And I have so much empathy for anyone who's gone through any scenario remotely close to that. Like, it is confusing and scary and a dark, hard place to be. But we do have hope in the Lord. And that is what got me through. But those fears of what is a lifetime of this going to feel like, and then realizing that this is something I was going to need to grieve and deal with and process. It was too much to bear. It was too much. Sometimes I still feel that way, and I think that's okay. It's part of this healing process that we go through, and we don't have all the answers, but I have one solid answer. I have one solid piece of ground to stand on, and that is the Lord. And he is the sustainer of all things. And that is true over and over in my life. And it certainly was the time that our daughter came to visit in Atlanta. So thank you for listening today. I will catch you up more next time. We'll be together soon.